Tantor Audio, a division of Recorded Books, presents Hiss H for Homicide by T.C. Lotempio, narrated by Amy Rubinate. Prologue. After Tuesday, there will be a lot of unhappy people around. I'm sure they never expected me to actually go through with it. Maybe I should invest in a bulletproof vest, haha. Marlene McCambridge leaned back in the overstuffed leather chair and propped one elegantly clad foot against the polished wood desk. One perfectly manicured hand reached up to brush a lacquered, expertly dyed blonde curl off her high forehead, while the other gripped a half-empty glass of scotch. Raising the glass to her lips, she took another sip, swallowed deeply. Her soon-to-be ex-partner wasn't a happy camper. No, not at all. Desiree had never been able to harm anything, not even a spider. Although in this case she might make an exception. Marlene downed the rest of her drink in one long gulp. She'd missed Desiree in a way. After all, they'd had a good long run, but like all good things, it was time for it to end. She couldn't speak for Desiree, of course, but if she had to write another line like, "My clasped hands made my cleavage seem almost buoyant, straining against the thin fabric of my dress," or "His chocolate hair and eyes reminded me of hot fudge, and I leaned against his hairy chest, feeling his muscles ripple beneath me," then holy moly, she'd have to slit both her wrists. After all, how many different ways could one describe a hairy chest? Desiree would probably disagree, but she was positive they'd exhausted them all, and then some. Well, at 2 p.m. Tuesday, the world would know two things. The writing team of McCambridge and Sanders was no more. And Marlene McCambridge was no person to screw around with. Or tell your innermost secrets to. Everyone loved a good scandal, right? And she was going to pull the plug on some real juicy ones. Sometimes it paid to be the person people confided in. In her case, it paid very well indeed. 2 million big ones, to be exact. And that was only the beginning. She pushed herself up and out of the chair and lurched toward the well-stocked bar at the other end of the den. The person she'd rented the house from had encouraged her to not be shy about drinking the large quantities of liquor on hand, and she had every intention of depleting his supply before her 90-day lease was up. Cruz was a quiet little town, the perfect place for her to hide out from the media storm that was sure to follow her announcement, to put the finishing touches on the project that would assure her financial independence. It wouldn't be long now. Once everything was set, she'd take off, maybe head to Rio, or maybe somewhere else in South America. She'd always had a weakness for men with Spanish accents. Too bad they always ended up ripping her off and vanishing. She splashed more Johnny Walker back into the glass, added ice and a splash of tonic water, and had barely taken a sip when every nerve in her body began to tingle. The unmistakable creak of a floorboard reached her ears. Now, how could that be? She was alone here, or at least she was supposed to be. Shake it off. This is an old house. Old houses always have noises. It's nothing. The floorboard creaked again. "Hey," she called out. "Anybody there?" Silence. Marlene flung open the den door and moved cautiously into the narrow hallway. She inched her way forward, peering this way and that, until she finally approached the large sitting room. Her sharp eyes took in the area, narrowing as they settled on the bay window over to the far left. One window was cracked open. Her frown deepened. She was fairly certain she'd shut them all earlier to ward off the evening chill. Casting another quick glance over her shoulder, she hurried over to the window, pulled it shut, and snapped the safety bolt into place. She leaned against the window seat and took a few calming breaths, listening intently. Nothing. I must have imagined it. She blew out a breath. I need a drink. She pushed away from the window and started across the room. But before she'd made it halfway, all the lights went out, and a terrified gasp escaped her lips. She'd never been fond of the dark, and this wasn't just dark, it was pitch. She bit down hard on her lower lip as the realization swept over her that she had no idea where the fuse box might be. Not that she'd know what to do with it if she did. A floorboard creaked again. This time she was certain it came from upstairs. She felt her way along the corridor back to the den and fumbled in the bottom drawer of the desk for the flashlight she'd seen once before. Her fingers closed over it and she switched it on. It emitted only a very faint glow, but it would be enough to get her safely upstairs and into bed. In the morning she'd find someone to help change the fuses. And just in case she got unexpected company, she had the .45 in the drawer by her bed. Maybe now was a good time to go up and get it. Marlene made her way slowly up the stairs. A slight rustling as she reached the top landing made her pause. Her head swiveled toward the sound, and she let out a startled gasp as she noticed the door to her office was partially open. Gripping the flashlight, she moved toward the door, paused, listened. Silence. Taking a deep breath, Marlene reached out a tentative hand, pushed the door all the way open. She moved slowly into the room, moved the flashlight slowly around in a circle. The soft glow partially illuminated the features of a tall figure, shrouded in shadow, standing not 2 feet to her left. The figure moved forward, the face now fully illuminated in the dim light. She sucked in her breath. "You?" she gasped, staring in surprise at the face before her. "What in hell are you doing sneaking around up here? You're not expected till—" She stopped, peered a bit more closely at the intruder. Her brows drew together. "Wait a second. You aren't—" Her nerveless fingers lost their grip on the flashlight, and it dropped and clicked off, plunging the room into darkness, and Marlene into self-doubt. Maybe I should have bought that bulletproof vest. Maybe I should have carried that gun around with me. Maybe I... Bang. Marlene slid into the darkness forever. 1. Chérie, I don't know what is getting more attention, the lunch items or the television. I brushed an auburn curl out of my eyes and cut the speaker, my BFF Chantal Giard, an eye roll. Although born right here in the little California seaside town of Cruz, my friend loved to affect a French accent. She thought it made her sound more international, so the sentence came out sounding more like, "What is getting more attention, the lunch items or that television?" I glanced at the throng of customers, all pressed up against my glass display case, eyes glued to Rachel Ray, whipping up some sort of yummy pasta dish on my brand-new 42-inch flat-screen television that hung suspended from the ceiling. "Right now," I sighed, "it looks like the TV is winning." I ignored the eye roll she shot at my attempt at a French accent and rapped my knuckles sharply on the counter. "Next," I called out. "Who's next in line?" No response. They might all have been zombies, staring mindlessly at the figures on the widescreen. "Hey there, is anybody hungry? Who wants lunch?" I called again. "Oh, sorry. I love Rachel Ray. What a great idea, Nora. Whatever made you decide to do it?" Alvina Wilkins, the assistant librarian, tore her gaze reluctantly from the TV and stepped up to the counter. A woman in her mid-40s, she was reed-thin, with a sunny disposition and a quirky sense of humor. Both excellent qualities, in my opinion, that made her able to get along with head librarian, Jamina Slater, who'd always been something of a tyrant. Scratch that, make it bully. And even though she was well into her 70s, showed no signs of wanting to vacate the post she'd held, ever since I could remember. "Blame my sister," I said. "When I went to visit her and Aunt Prudence a few weeks ago, she dragged me to this little cafe. Their line was practically out the door, but the customers weren't complaining. They were all gushing about how entertaining it was to watch TV while they waited for their food. The owner happened to be there, and he said his business had almost tripled since he'd installed it, so Lacey dared me to give it a try. You never could resist a challenge, could you? Especially from your sister." Alvina wiggled her fingers in a careless gesture and glanced at the sign above the counter. "Did I hear you say you added something new to the menu?" "You did." I beamed and pointed to the sign to the left of the counter, excited as always when I added a new sandwich to my already teeming menu. The Megan Fox is grilled chicken and cheese, dipped into egg batter and sautéed in butter. Your choice of cheese, of course, although I recommend the cheddar. The Brian Austin green is made identically, except I substitute ham for the chicken. Alvina flashed her pearly whites at me. They both sound yummy. I'll try the Megan Fox. I do love my chicken. And a decaf coffee, too, please.
Might as well make that, too,
said a deep voice. I glanced over at the speaker, a broad-shouldered guy with silky hair, redder than my own, that reached to just below his shoulders. Steel gray eyes peered at me from under two bushy eyebrows, even as his well-shaped lips split in a grin, revealing teeth so white I was positive he bleached them. Or they were caps, or both. The ID badge swinging from the black lanyard around his neck had Paul Jenkins printed in big black letters. He'd only joined the crew's son a few weeks ago, but Jenks, as he liked to be called, had already become a steady customer, and apparently one of the few not mesmerized by my new television.
Know what would really go good with that sandwich, though? A strawberry banana smoothie.
You're not the first customer to tell me that, I admitted, reaching into the glass case for my chicken cutlets and cheese. I did look into it. I priced a really high-end gourmet ice machine, one that can be used for slushies, smoothies, even frozen cappuccinos. Let's just say, unless a winning lottery ticket's in my future, my budget doesn't stretch that far right now. It will once you get a few more catering jobs, Alvina said with a toss of her head. You did such a splendid job with the Cruise Museum Gala, it's only a matter of time. Chantal cocked her head and whispered too low for the others to hear. Or you could ask Violet Crenshaw. She did promise you a reward, after all. Yes, she did, I hissed back. But I have a feeling that reward has already been decided. Violet said she'd be in touch about it when she and Alexa returned from England. Oh, pooh, well... Chantal's black cap of curls bobbed as she rubbed her hands together. It's probably something really unimaginative too, you know. Money or a gift card to Nordstrom. True, I said teasingly. Not everyone has someone in their life who can give them the perfect birthday gift, like a new set of crystals and tarot card deck. Chantal blushed right down to the roots of her black hair. She knew I was referring to her sometime beau, Rick Barnes, a DOJ official who worked in nearby Carmel. For Chantal's birthday a few weeks ago, he gifted her with just that, and she hadn't stopped talking about his thoughtful gift for days. Alvina glanced over at Jenks, who appeared to be listening intently to the conversation. Violet Crenshaw is our museum director. Nora recently reunited her with her missing niece.
I know. I read some of the stories in the newspaper archives about the exploits of Nora Charles, sandwich shop owner by day, sleuth by night. That one and the Lola Granger affair.
Jenks turned and gave me an appraising glance.
You're quite the amateur sleuth. I've always had a yen to be a Hardy boy. Someday, you've got to let me in on how you do it.
A large black and white paw snaked over the edge of the countertop, then disappeared. Jenks drew back, obviously startled.
What the heck?
He cried. The paw appeared again, clicked its nails on the formica, and then vanished. Come on up, Nikki, Chantal sang out. Don't be shy. Jenks frowned.
Nikki?
Yes. Chantal's eyes danced with mischief. Nikki Charles, Nora's partner in crime-solving. A second later, a large tuxedo cat lofted onto the rear counter. He held up one paw and flexed it, displaying razor-sharp shivs. Jenks took a step backward, his eyes wide.
Ugh, a cat. I hate cats, especially black ones. Don't you know they're bad luck?
Nick wrapped his tail around his body and sat erect, his glossy black and white tipped paws tucked under him, and let his unblinking stare rest first on Jenks, then Alvina and Chantal, before finally settling on me. Meow, he said, and sniffed. Technically, he's not a black cat. He's a tuxedo who gets upset when he's not included, I said. I gave him a light tap on his derriere, and he leapt down to the floor, then shuffled over to his favorite spot, in front of my double-door refrigerator, where he arranged himself, sphinx-like, all the while bestowing me with a look of catly disdain. As for the bad luck part, I can think of a few criminals who'd agree with that observation. Jenks swallowed and continued to stare at Nick.
You're kidding, right, about him being your partner?
I shook my head. Not at all. Nick and I are a team, just like the original Nick and Nora Charles, except this Nick prefers milk to martinis. Nick blinked again, and the corners of his lips tipped up. Then he stretched out his forepaws, laid his head down on them, and closed both eyes. Jenks continued to eye Nick warily.
So what does he do exactly? Carry a magnifying glass in his paw at crime scenes? Hiss when he suspects homicide? Scratch a murderer's eyes out?
One eye winked open, Nick's tail bristled, and a loud grrr rumbled in his throat. Believe it or not, Nick's more effective than you'd think when it comes to apprehending the bad guys. He has his own way of communicating clues. Pretty successful ways, I might add. His former owner was a PI.
Former owner? What happened to him?
Ah, a very good question. I certainly wasn't about to share with Jenks what I'd recently learned, that Nick Atkins might be involved in espionage. I shrugged. He's been away, on business. Nick sat up and batted his paw beneath my refrigerator, and a few seconds later 3 small square tiles came into view. Jenks looked amused.
So the cat's a Scrabble player, huh? Is he any good?
You could say that, I said, as Chantal dropped the tiles into my palm. An S, A, P, and a Y. Spy. He has an uncanny sixth sense about things. Cats are supposed to have psychic abilities, you know. Jenks backed away from the cat, who'd lofted onto the counter again and was now chewing on the edge of another tile. He turned back to me.
So you and this PI were close, I take it?
Not really. I hesitated and then added, I never met the man. Jenks's jaw dropped.
Never met him? I thought you said he left you his cat to take care of.
That's not how it happened. Nick just showed up on my doorstep one night.
Just like that, huh?
Jenks rubbed the stubble on his chin with one long finger.
And I suppose the cat learned how to be a sleuth from that PI?
I wasn't quite sure how to answer that. I couldn't deny the fact feline Nick possessed a decided flair for detective work, ferreting out clues and communicating via the use of Scrabble tiles, another long story. Without his help, though, I'd never have solved 3 mysteries. Plus, I'd most likely be pushing up daisies. The little fellow had saved me from an untimely demise on more than one occasion. In return, he got a roof over his head, a warm bed, although he preferred to sleep on mine, 3 square meals a day, plus he got to sample all my specials before the customers. Really, what more could a cat ask? I lifted my shoulders in a shrug. I don't think he learned it from anyone. I think it just comes naturally to him. Nick had apparently decided I'd suffered enough for my oversight on his role in our partnership, and now turned his full attention to licking his thick coat into an ebony sheen. Alvina touched Jenks's arm. It's all so exciting, isn't it? I think Nora and Nick would make a great human interest story for the Sunday edition. People love cats. They're the most popular house pet, right above hamsters and dogs. She leaned toward me and whispered, I read it on Google. Jenks scratched his head, making the jagged ends of hair above his ears stand out.
As much as I dislike cats, I have to admit an article on you two would probably be a lot more interesting than the interview old Marker's got his heart set on.
A smile touched my lips at that assessment. Henry Marker, editor of the Crew's Sun, was a crusty curmudgeon who brought to mind images of Perry White clenching his cigar and screaming, "Great Caesar's ghost" at Clark Kent and Lois Lane. When he had his mind set upon a particular article, it practically took a sign from the man upstairs himself to make him change his mind. Alvina tossed Jenks a curious look. What interview is that?
Oh, some romance novelist holed up in the old porterhouse off Highway 11.
He felt around in his jacket pocket and whipped out a worn notebook, flipped to a back page.
Marlene McCambridge. Ever hear of her?
Marlene McCambridge, you're kidding, Elvina squealed. She's really here in Cruz?
Jenks put a finger to his lips. Shush, not so loud. It's supposed to be a secret, he hissed. Marker only found out because his cousin Joni took care of the rental.
Sorry, Elvina murmured. She gave a quick glance around to make sure no one was listening, and then said in a low tone, Everyone loves the Tiffany Blake books. Their new one comes out Tuesday, Love's Deepest Desire. I ordered 5 copies. I just can't keep them in stock. I'm convinced Maud Appleby confiscated most of them for her own personal library.
Jenks swatted at his ear with his hand. I'm sorry, I think my hearing is going. Did you say their new one? Plural?
Oh, yes. 2 women write those books. As a matter of fact, Elvina smiled at me, Nora's mother was friends with the other woman, Desiree Sanders.
Jenks turned to me. Is that right?
I nodded. Desiree was Dora Slater back then. She had some modest success after she changed her name, but she really hit it big when she teamed up with Marlene and invented the persona of Tiffany Blake. I think practically every book in that series has been on the New York Times or USA Today bestseller list, or both. Yes, it would be quite a coup to get Marlene to make an appearance. Maybe you can put in a good word for me, Jenks, when you do your interview, Elvina said hopefully.
If I do it, Jenks said with a sigh, reaching for his tray. She's not exactly the most cooperative person in the world, from what I can gather. I've left several messages, but so far no dice.
He turned to me, and his lips twisted into a half-smile.
Think about that article, Nora. I might be back.
As they moved away, Chantal touched my arm. I forgot to tell you. I promised Remy I'd take the afternoon shift at the flower shop. Will you be okay here with Molly gone? Molly Travis was the high school senior who helped out mornings and afternoons, but school was closed this week, and she and her parents had gone to Big Sur to visit relatives. I stared down the line of heads tilted upward, their eyes now glued to a popular talk show. I don't see why not, I sighed. Great. I'll give you a call tonight to find out how long it took for them all to come out of their comas. Better make it tomorrow morning. I've got a date with Daniel tonight. One well-shaped eyebrow rose. You two haven't been out together since the costume ball. Why is that? I pulled a face at her. She knew darn well why. I'd met FBI Special Agent Daniel Corleone during my investigation of Lola Granger's death. At 6'2", broad-shouldered, with burnished blonde hair cut a bit on the shaggy side, tanned skin and clear blue eyes, he was the epitome of the word hunk. Sparks had flown between us from the first, but our budding romance was slow to take off, due partly to the demands of Daniel's job, and partly to my reluctance to rush into a relationship. As it happens, my reluctance has a name. When I'd first met Leroy Sams, we were seniors at the University of California, and he'd just been appointed editor of the college paper. From our first encounter, there had been a spark of something. I couldn't tell you just what. When we weren't trading insults, we were butting heads over everything from bylines to the use of commas. The night before graduation, though, we'd decided to celebrate the completion of a difficult story with champagne, and ended up in each other's arms. The details on just what transpired that night have always remained a bit fuzzy, but suffice it to say we made it through graduation without ever speaking another word to each other. Then, 15 years later, I ran into him again, under much different circumstances. He was my sister's arresting officer. Was there still a spark between us? Had I wondered through the years what might have happened had Sams and I gotten together? My answer would have to be a definite maybe. Chantal winked at me and started to hum Torn Between Two Lovers. I mimed throwing a plate at her, and she blew me a kiss and disappeared out the back door. I started to turn back toward the counter and almost tripped over Nick. He squatted at my feet, and I gasped at the object I saw clenched beneath one paw. My brand-new iPhone. I'd barely had it a week and was still getting used to all the bells and whistles. "No claws!" I cried. The last thing I wanted were scratches on its nice shiny exterior. I bent down and ticked his paw. Nick backed away, shooting me a look of catly disdain. He held up one forepaw, innocent of claw tips, and sneezed. Sorry, Nick. Do I even want to know how you managed to get your paws on these things? Cell phones, journals, Scrabble tiles. Nothing was sacred to this cat. Meow, he warbled, reaching up to bat at the phone with his paw. A second later, it rang. I raised both eyebrows. I just hate it when you do that. It's so spooky. I glanced at the number, but it was one I didn't recognize. I started to click it into voicemail, but Nick let out a loud meow and raised his paw, pointing at the phone, black tail swishing to and fro like a metronome. All right, I'll answer it. I clicked the accept button and made a face at Nick. Hello? Is this Nora Charles? The voice was feminine, but it wasn't familiar. Yes, I said cautiously. The same Nora Charles who used to write for the Chicago Tribune? Laura Charles's daughter? Now my radar tingled so much I shivered. Yes? Who am I speaking with, please? Ignoring my question, she went on. I simply cannot believe this is how that hack repays my loyalty. All those years of dedication, plotting, character creation, the actual writing, not to mention flying all over the globe on those damn personal appearance tours, down the drain. I thought we had something good, something solid, and now it's up in smoke. She's an ingrate, I tell you, a total ingrate, and she must be stopped. I'm sick, I tell you, just sick. She paused for a breath, and I saw my chance. I'm sorry, but I haven't the faintest idea who you are or what you're talking about. What? The voice at the other end sounded incredulous. This is Desiree Sanders, and isn't it obvious? I'm talking about my partner, that no-talent, good-for-nothing, ungrateful hack of a human being. She paused for breath. She's trying to murder me. 2. For a second, I was so stunned I couldn't speak. Finally, I managed to croak out, You said your name is Desiree Sanders? Yes. Her tone softened a bit. I knew your mother. Laura was one of my dearest friends. Yes, she spoke of you often. I blew out a breath. I assume the partner you mention is Marlene McCambridge? Who else? Desiree's voice had risen to an ear-splitting shriek. Nick's sensitive ears picked up on the increase in decibels. He stretched out on the floor and put his paws over his ears. I moved farther back into the corner, afraid the sound would carry out to my customers. What has she done that's led you to think she wants to kill you? I asked. If that's so, then you really should contact the police. I heard a sharp intake of breath, and then Desiree said in a calmer tone, I'm sorry. I should have clarified my statement. She doesn't want to murder me. She wants to kill my career. Although if she goes through with what she has planned, she might as well just take a knife and stab me through the heart. I'll be as good as dead. I'll be ruined. I remembered my mother describing Desiree as dramatic, and I thought that assessment accurate. What exactly is it she's planning to do? Miss Priss wants to dissolve our partnership. Yes, that's right. As of 2 p.m. tomorrow, the writing team of McCambridge and Sanders, better known as Tiffany Blake, will be no more. Ah, light was beginning to dawn on the reason Marlene had come to cruise alone. I dragged my hand through my hair. Are you certain she's serious? If the two of you had an argument, maybe this is just her idea of payback. Arguments are a way of life with us, Desiree spat. We disagree every other day. And no, this wasn't a spur-of-the-moment, heat-of-the-moment threat. She's hinted at dissolution before, but this time it's different. She's got paperwork all drawn up, and she actually expects me to sign it. I'm here in cruise because I need to try and talk some sense into her, the witch. Desiree grunted softly, and I detected a hint of something besides anger in her tone. Desperation? This dissolution is just the tip of the iceberg. Your mother always said how cool and level-headed you were, And those qualities are exact.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?